Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to The Voiced Opinion here on Off the Air Productions. I am Jacob Sisneros-Baca, and I'm joined by the lovely Ben Kaysen and Jacob Sandoval. Today, we are going to take a journey down the road of Disney, Star Wars, and where the franchise is going. And we'll also have the amazing Rant of the Day, where we'll complain to you about something that's really not important, but we'll sure complain about it because that's what we do. So, guys, Star Wars. You big fans? What's your guys' history with the series? You know, did you grow up on it?
Well, let me just say this. That was a beautiful intro. I love that intro. Big intro.
Called Lovely.
Yeah, lovely intro. But Star Wars, not as lovely.
Oh my god!
Yikes!
Hot take.
The last part of the saga that we all saw for Star Wars was rough, to say the least.
Listen, guys, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. And to answer your question, JSB, I have been a big fan of Star Wars for a very long time. I mean, talking since I was probably 6 or 7 years old. I collected the action figures, loved the prequels, went through that entire phase. It's a big part of what I like to be a fan of. And the new stuff that's come out, like Jacob said, has some flaws. Be interested to see what you guys think about it. But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, dude. Kit Fisto all the way.
I grew up with it. I remember going to see Revenge of the Sith. That was the first time I went to the movies to see a Star Wars show, and I was hooked on it. I would rewatch the intro of Revenge of the Sith over and over and over again whenever I got into my family's car. Man, I have great memories with Star Wars. I've always been a huge collector of the merchandise, the toys, the Legos, the figures. I still collect all that junk now. So, you know, I really, really hate Disney, and I hate what they did to Star Wars, to be honest. Now, I will say there are some good parts. Like, I really like the designs of, like, the new Stormtroopers. I love those. A few of the characters, I really liked how they looked. A few of the vehicles, aliens, and worlds and stuff. It had good concepts, but the story, it's so pointless. After watching The Rise of Skywalker, you know, I thought it was an enjoyable movie. I had fun watching it, but that movie solidified for me that this series should not have been made. And there was no point. They didn't have a story to tell.
I think you're 100% right, where it's like, the story just didn't need to be told. Like, essentially, and you can make the argument that essentially none of this story had to be told. It's not a necessity. It's just everybody wants a really cool story, sci-fi story. But to me, it's like, I'm the same way with you, that essentially they started off with something and then they caved, and it's hard to articulate what exactly they did, because whatever they did it so horribly. You would think a giant company with all that money and so many great people working there would be able to have a story planned out for the 3 movies and not just make it up as you go. But no, they're that dumb that they made it up as they went.
You guys are brutal. You guys are brutal. Let me tell you why you guys are brutal. So for the original Star Wars, JSB, they didn't really know what plots they were going to make. Like, they didn't even know they were going to do the Luke is Darth Vader's son famous plot twist. Like, Luke didn't even, like, really the only actor that even knew that was a thing was Mark Hamill. They put in the voice later because they didn't know that was going to happen. Star Wars has always been about split decisions, and that's what happens. I think that you guys are overreacting a little bit. Listen, I'm not a huge fan of a couple of the latest movies, and obviously, let me make this clear. Spoiler alert here on our Voiced Opinion podcast, because we're going to be talking a lot about this last movie that's come out and a lot of Star Wars. But if you look at the stuff that's come out, I mean, The Mandalorian has been fantastic. Rogue One is one of my favorites. I think Solo is really good. And I think there's a lot of stuff that's really good in this trilogy that's come out. But I agree with you guys that as a whole, it felt a little bit directionless. But here's the thing. In Star Wars' history, as a whole, sometimes it feels a little directionless. That's just how it is. The whole point of Star Wars is you want to enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the galaxy. And I think that they've done a good job of improving on the galaxy. Some stuff is wrong. I mean, I'm going to be roasting Disney a bit here during this thing as well, but it's not as bad as you guys say. The sky's not falling for Star Wars. I mean, there's some good stuff out. There's some good stuff out.
See, I feel like, especially in the new movies, the galaxy felt so much smaller. Like, it felt tiny because it's the same people doing the same things in the same stories, the same stormtroopers. It's like, come on, there's got to be other things going on
I kind of disagree
the same
with that.
family fighting this same. It felt so tiny.
No. I definitely disagree with that. I agree with Ben, where it's like the world seems so much bigger.
Yeah.
Because I look at all the places they go and all the different, like, don't get me wrong. I think everything in the movie, everything in the last 3 movies is very nice to look at. No matter what scene it is, everything is very nice to look at. And that's because CGI has come so far in the decade we are in soon. Like, it's just going to look nice no matter what. Or unless you watch the Cats movie, and that CGI is atrocious. But anyways, for Star Wars,
I just got nauseous from you saying that.
Yeah, but for Star Wars, like it's a nice looking movie. The worlds I think are all beautiful, but I think that what kills it for me is not the characters themselves, it's just the characters and the story. Like, I think all the actors that played these characters did a phenomenal job. Like, honestly, I would love to have Rey's lightsaber. I'd like to have a figure of Poe and Finn. And, you know, I have a figure of BB-8. So, you know, it's like these characters and these objects in this movie are very fascinating, very entertaining. But when it comes to the story, it just like it doesn't throw the whole franchise away from me. But it was just an atrocious story for me.
It definitely doesn't. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Okay. The main thing about Star Wars and really any of these movies, the purpose is to entertain. And as much as fans, I know we all are like pretty extensive fans of the shows and of the movies, but the fact is, I mean, it's to entertain. And if I can't tell you guys enough, I was sitting through that last movie that just came out. I was entertained almost the entire movie. I know that you guys think the plot's a little bit whack, and I agree there's some parts that aren't great, but as a whole, I mean, it was an entertaining movie. You got to give it that.
I would say this, that last movie, the Rise of Skywalker, was probably, I would consider it a good movie. Because even though I didn't agree with the story, like the movie is really, really good. It's a good pacing. And I think that's one of the big things is it's like a lot of action just thrown right in your face. And then at the end, it's just like, yeah, we're going to glaze over a couple plot points and just give you even more action. So they just pumped us full of action, which, you know, like as if I just shut off my mind, like I can definitely enjoy that movie. But because I've been a Star Wars fan for such a long time, I don't really want to go back and revisit that movie because it's like, you know, the plot points that they glaze over and the ending to me just feels stupid and empty.
It's so stupid.
Like been here, done that.
So what I want to bring up about it, because you guys mentioned, now I'm sticking with this whole the universe felt smaller storyline that I have in my head. Now, okay, think back to all the planets we've visited during this trilogy. Desert planet, snow planet, desert planet again. We were in a cool ice planet for like 2 seconds. Then wrecked Death Star planet, right?
And they were at that awesome red salt planet at the end of the last
jungle.
Jedi. Didn't love the movie, but it was fantastic.
The jungle planet.
Yeah.
But those are all things we've seen before. And if you look back at the
dope.
prequels...
If you look at Jakku, it is just dope.
Jakku is dope.
Oh my gosh, what a great set design.
It's Tatooine with a wrecked ship. It's literally Tatooine with a giant wrecked ship. Now go back to the prequels. Think of all the different worlds they went to in those movies. There was a cool underwater world, a rain world.
Oh, that wasn't very cool.
Ideas.
No, I
even
disagree
in just episode 3, all the cool planets. They had that flower planet that was all psychedelic and
Felucia, yeah,
Mustafar. All those places were so unique and had such characters. And all of the planets in this new trilogy are just boring repeats with different names. I couldn't believe how dull all the planets were. I was hoping to see some cool stuff, but it was literally just stuff you could find on Earth.
I mean, like whenever it went to that awesome planet at the end of this last one, where literally, I think it's like one of the moons of Endor where you can see the Death Star is there and the waves are chopping like crazy. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me you were looking at that and we're like, this is boring.
Yeah.
Because that was an awesome set piece.
Yeah. Okay, how long were they there?
They were there for probably about 15, 20 minutes. The fight, when they were on that part of the Death Star fighting each other with the rain coming up and the waves. Oh, that was such a cool scene, man. I'm not a big fan of everything in this movie, I promise, but I'm telling you, the set design is one of the highlights for me. I love the sets they've been doing.
I'll say that part was cool. I got no problem saying that part was cool. But the planet around it was just water. It was just rain. I don't know. I just think that's super boring. But back to the points of the characters and the story, which is probably more important than the planets and whatnot. I thought that the biggest thing I've gotten from the characters of this new trilogy. Now, this doesn't apply to like Rogue One, Solo, and The Mandalorian. It's completely different than what I think about these three here. I thought all of the characters were wasted potential. Everyone except for Kylo Ren and Rey had so much wasted potential. I was so hyped for Captain Phasma going into The Force Awakens. Like, I was so excited for a cool looking bad guy, a cool looking bad lady, and she's gonna, do all this cool stuff. She got Boba Fetted. She literally got Boba Fetted.
Mm-hmm. Twice.
And then we go to the Rise of Skywalker. We have this cool, mysterious bounty hunter lady, Poe's friend. She's in it for like 2 minutes. She doesn't do anything.
To be honest, when I see those kind of characters, what I think is spin-off. Because like I definitely think for Poe's character, I think they were definitely hinting at it that like Poe has this life of tomfoolery he had before the war or before he joined the revolution.
I would have
Disney
rather
Plus.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a movie with completed characters with complete arcs than just a movie setting up more movies. I hate that idea.
Here's the thing, though. So I'm not going to be defending the characters that much because I think the main problem with characters, this is a big thing about cinema that people I think don't understand. Characters and plot, a lot of people try and separate those things, but they are critical to go together because that gives the characters their motivations and what they do. So the plots for these movies, it felt really streamlined, like go here, go here, go here, you have to do this, which makes the characters feel really streamlined. In terms of the characters, I think there's some really good ideas, and I agree with you, JSB, though. Finn was the biggest waste of potential I have ever seen in Star Wars. They finally addressed the idea that stormtroopers are sentient and can make decisions and that they could do something whack. And so I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting to watch. How is this going to affect the way our heroes take down stormtroopers in fights? Oh, it doesn't. They're still going to ball up, including the guy who was a stormtrooper. Mm-hmm. It's one of those that's just a massive waste of potential. But on the other end, I feel like a lot of the characters, they were literally put in there to get the main characters from point to point. And the reason that these characters don't feel the same as the previous characters in Star Wars is you don't see any points where these guys actually have rapport with one another. Like the way that they try and show the chemistry between characters is them like bickering or fighting or just like dumb, awkward conversation. You don't ever see these characters like being friends. You don't ever see like Finn and Poe and Rey and this whole squad from that last one, like you would have seen a Han, a Luke, a Leia all together and just, being together because they're friends and you believe these guys are going to be a great crew. You don't see that in this trilogy, which I think is a big problem. And that's why the characters feel shallow at times. And I agree with you. A lot of wasted potential when it comes to that, because the plot was so next thing, and they didn't leave time for characters to breathe.
Right. I definitely agree. I agree with Ben for a little bit, but I disagree in the fact that that characters and story go exactly together, because to tell you the truth, I really like the character of Finn. I did think in the second part of the last trilogy they did, like what was that movie called? The Last Jedi?
Mm.
Like straight up, like just a wasted movie. Just like nothing happened.
It was a wasted movie. It was
nothing happened in that movie besides a cool fight scene. But then if you go back and watch that fight scene, there's people jumping all over the place at nothing. Like, go back and watch that. And like people are just hitting swords and then jumping away.
Yikes!
And it's but like when you see it for the first time, it's really cool. And so it was entertaining the first time, but the second time it's almost laughable. But to me, it's like when I look at Finn's character, I really felt like when I look at his character all the way through, they were really trying to push for him to become next in line to be a Jedi. Him and Rey were going to be the next Jedis. But then in the second one, they were confused, and then they brought it back a little bit in the third one that he's force sensitive. But then in that very first one, he picks up that lightsaber and he goes toe-to-toe with Kylo Ren, and that got me excited. In the second one, they just said, let's just throw him down a garbage chute and
here's
let
a
him
fetch quest.
yeah. Let's
go with this character everyone hates.
And I'll get to my other point is how Disney didn't ruin Star Wars. The fans ruined Star Wars because what they did to, I don't know the actress's name, but the character is Rose. What they did to Rose was terrible.
See, this is why. Sorry to interrupt you.
That
but
is
this is
so blown out of proportion.
But right here, I just want to say the Rose thing. Everybody is talking about she's an awful character. You can't separate character from plot. She was put in an awful plot spot, and that's why she was bad. Back to you, Jacob. Sorry.
But to me, it's like character-wise. Well, I think that is true because her motivation was just dumb. Is my sister died.
Yeah.
And so now I'm gonna just
go on
this
fetch quest and
and. Yeah, I guess you're right for Rose, but for Finn, I felt like the motivation was there. He was trying to help his friend Rey, but yeah,
he tried to help her by just shouting her name very loudly every time he saw her. Ray!
Oh, that's a funny meme right there. Oh, I saw like a compilation of that happens. Those compilation videos of like just Kylo Ren shouting too, and just being upset, hilarious. But yeah, no,
that's literally all he does is shout Rey loudly.
But yeah, they just, I think Ben's right where they didn't put him in a setting where they could act like friends. They wanted it to be jam-packed with action, and then you look back at the old Star Wars films, and there's plenty of scenes where they're just sitting around talking.
Like nothing happens in Star Wars Episode 6 if you watch it, but everyone loves that movie.
Loves it. Nothing happens. But
I love Empire.
Me too.
It's such a. It feels so like contained. It's such a good contained story where they go to these cool places and a lot happens. And honestly, there's not a single one of these 3 movies, like maybe a little bit with The Force Awakens, but I haven't had any urge whatsoever to go back and watch any of them. Like even now, especially since they're all on Disney Plus, I have never once had an urge to go back and rewatch the first 2 or when the new one comes out. I don't even think I want to rewatch all 3. But I went back and watched the whole Star Wars series, 1 through 6, several times since they've come out.
I might be Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It's just so. I don't know. I have no urge to want to go and watch it because it's just so. It's I don't know. It's lacking a lot for me. But what were you going to say, Sandoval?
I was going to say that I might be contradicting myself because earlier I think I said I probably wouldn't go back and watch that Rise of Skywalker because honestly I didn't think I was going to go back and watch Revenge of the Sith. That's the third one, right? Third episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to go watch that a couple times, but I did. And for the Rise of Skywalker, I will watch it a couple times because I did think they finally got the camaraderie right in that movie where like it actually feels like these people care about each other.
I disagree.
Really?
Sorry, keep going. Yeah.
I totally think, I definitely feel like Poe, Rey, and Finn were definitely friends at the end of it all.
I think they went to places with each other and bickered with each other the entire way.
Oh yeah, but that's essentially the first Star Wars too.
No, that's not the same. It's not the same. You never see any sort of camaraderie within them, especially in this movie where they're all together for a lot of the movie. They're just fighting the whole time. It doesn't work for me. That's just my opinion. Keep going.
Yeah, I get. See, to me, it's like they have their scenes together. And I think bickering's part of it. I think part of the reason people find camaraderie is because they have differing opinions, and they.
So, what's a serious scene from that movie that you specifically remember thinking that's a lot of camaraderie between them?
between them.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about how they hug at the end, and I also think when they are all sitting around, and they're trying to get the code out of C3PPOs.
C3PPOs.
Yeah. The golden robots. They're trying to get the codes out of his head.
Yeah.
And the robot says, "I'm taking one last look at all my friends," and they all look at each other, and they kind of have that little moment where, like, he's kind of right. We are like,
see,
the true friend.
That part made me mad. I got annoyed. I literally said it in the theater. I was with my friend when I was watching. I was, that's not his friends. He doesn't know any of these people. Because they didn't build up this connection at this last movie. They just shoved them all together and be like, "You guys are friends now." We never seen them grow as friends. We never seen them together, experiencing things together. It just felt like it was so just forced friendship on this group, and that's why I don't think there was any camaraderie between them. It's because there was no history through these other movies. We couldn't build this relationship like we did when Han and Leia and Chewie were always together throughout the original trilogy. Like, even think back to the previous two movies. Rey and Finn were together for most of it.
Well, not at all in the second movie.
Well, but
in the second movie, they weren't even together at all.
But in the second movie,
in anything.
But I also think in the second movie, Poe is saying we need to get Luke and Rey back here to help us. Like,
that's not camaraderie. That's plot point moving.
No, I think that's camaraderie. He's like, "Finn, you go and do this and save our friends, and I'll try to hold things down here." And Finn, like, to me, it's like Finn and Rey, like, they have that kind of connection. To me, they definitely.
I agree. I think that comes from that first movie, that first part in Jakku, but nothing has been done to build it.
I also think that Rey and Kylo had like a special connection as well. I think they did good with Rey and Kylo, and Finn and Rey. Poe is a little bit iffy, but I definitely feel like in that second movie, he definitely cares about what's going on in the Resistance, and then he also cares about Rey and Finn. I definitely think they show that more in the last movie rather than the second movie. But yeah, there's definitely some time jumps, but then also the original Star Wars had big time jumps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel the connection between the characters because I didn't get to see it. And for most of the movies, you get to see it. And it was a problem with the prequels too. Kind of in the last movie, they were like, "Look here, Anakin and Obi-Wan are really good friends." But we didn't get to see much of that in the other movies.
I think you do get to see that in the other movies, though. Sorry to jump on your toes, JSB, but for Luke and Anakin, not Luke and Anakin, sorry, Obi-Wan and Anakin, you can kind of see that kind of awkward, strained relationship at first. And if you watch the second movie, they do seem to be good friends in some scenes. And when you reach the third movie, they're really good friends at the start of the movie. Like you mentioned, there's a little bit of a jump, but then it's just kind of sad to watch it degrade. For this one, I felt like it was very... all right, the script says we have to be friends, so we are friends and we move this way.
Oh yeah, they definitely did better in the prequels than this. But another thing that kind of it confuses me, especially with a lot of the older characters' motivations, is we spent all this time watching the rebels rise to power and beat this evil empire and take them down. For it just to restart in the new one, like what is this new empire?
The same exact evil, just
I thought
have to take it down again.
Such a wasted potential of an interesting dynamic where the empire is actually the small ragtag group trying to build power, and it's like the reverse original trilogy, or even have like a new threat come into the galaxy, something we haven't seen. But instead, we have the same exact thing, and the heroes are in the same position. I was baffled when I saw them do that. I was like, what happened? What led up to this? It didn't make any sense
to me. And this is where my kind of thing ties in: is the Star Wars fans ruined Star Wars. Well, not necessarily completely ruined Star Wars, but definitely ruined the end of the saga. Because to me, it's like, it felt like they were going in a path of what's called anybody can be a Jedi. Like at the end of the second movie, you have this little boy who can use a Force. In the first movie, you had Finn, who is able to use a lightsaber. And then in the third one, he's Force sensitive. But what happens is they get a bunch of complaints. Everybody says it's stupid. Everybody complains on Twitter. Everybody complains on social media about how Disney's ruining their franchise. And then you have a bunch of people liking videos, liking tweets that, oh, raise a Palpatine. Oh, get rid of Rose. And then Disney sees that and says, well, we're a capitalist company. We got to give the people what they like so we can be successful in this market. And so they give everything that the people want. And they say, let's throw away this interesting in-depth story and just feed them exactly what they want. They want a lot of action, high pacing. They want Rey to be a Palpatine. And then they want us to just get rid of Rose. And they gave it exactly to us. And then we said, well, most fans said, we didn't like it. We didn't like how that ended. That was dumb. There's so many plot points you just glazed over, because the second movie is kind of weird because it's like, well, I feel like the first one is weird too, because the whole plot gets thrown out of whack when you say, oh, there's 5 planets that host resistance fighters and they're all gone now. And so you're back being the underdogs and we're the what's called top dogs, but we have ships that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
It's an interesting idea. I think that the thought is today's culture, when it comes to theories and theorizing about stuff that we like, does make it really tough to satisfyingly conclude a show. I think we saw that as well with Game of Thrones, the way that one ended, with a lot of stuff like that. But for Star Wars, it's a weird show or a weird franchise because there's really not a ton of structure to it, and you can do a lot of stuff. And like we saw, they did a lot of stuff. But what I really agree with you is that it's not that it's not entirely their fault, but I think that Star Wars fans definitely would get their theories in their mind and would be disappointed when their theories weren't true. For example, I've thought that Rey Palpatine was a theory for a long time. I called that a long time ago. But the thing is, I don't take a ton of credit for it because I think that wasn't the original plan. And like you said, they changed it to adjust. I think that's what happened with Rose. For this last movie, she kind of got put off screen and not messed with because, there's a bit of a negative outfit. Right. But this isn't the first time they've done that either, because they did the same thing with Jar Jar in the original trilogy. They thought he was going to be a big character, and then everybody hated him. And so they shoved him into a corner for the next 2 movies. So it's something that we as consumers need to understand, that whenever we are upset about a product, we're going to get stuff like this where they do jump hoops to try and make us happy. And with that sometimes makes people not happy. It's going to be hard to please everybody. And I agree, it wasn't super original, but at the same time, the fans, I agree, they definitely had a role in the way that this end of this trilogy went.
And the sad part is it's such a vocal minority that causes all this problem.
I don't think so.
It's all these idiots that go on Twitter and
but I think the vocal minority kind of speaks for the entire community. No. I disagree very strongly with that. Did you like the character Rose?
No, nope. But I wouldn't threaten the poor lady doing that. Well, and that's what the vocal minority does.
But that vocal minority also said don't put her in the 3rd movie. And guess what they did? They didn't put her in the 3rd movie.
Yeah.
I think these big media companies who are making these movies, they need to just stop listening to the fans, and they need to have a story built out and stick with it. They get feedback about Rose. How about you just make her into a good character? You take with what you got and you make it good instead of just taking it out. Like if Rose was in this Rise of Skywalker and they did a good job with her story, which I'm sure they could have. The people over there are smart, They could have saved that character instead of just having this weird, awkward absence the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like they need to have some backbone and like, you know, trust us. We're in charge of this. You know, we can handle making a story. You idiots down there who don't know how to make movies, let us do it.
So this is interesting.
That's why I think it's Disney's fault.
I think that's what they did with the second movie in the trilogy, JSB, and everybody rejected it right into their face because they made some very aggressive choices when it came to it. I'm not saying it's a good movie. In fact, I think it was my least favorite Star Wars movie to this point, but they made some really aggressive choices when it came to the story and crazy stuff happening, and they kind of walked it back in this last movie because it was so unpopular. So if you really want them to make a story and stick with it, then don't complain as much whenever something whack happens in the second movie. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tough with the second movie because we all don't like it, but
true,
there are some good parts about it and good ideas. Like I like the idea that, you know, anybody could be a Jedi. That was cool. It was just
but then they walk it back.
Yeah, it was just the what is it called? The execution that was just so poor. That was awful. And I think me and you both agree, Ben, that Rian Johnson is a pretty good director. Like he made that Knives Out movie, and that was great.
Knives Out's amazing. Oh my god!
And his Breaking Bad episodes are fantastic too. So it's, man, the fans just make everything worse. But I'm going to give you guys a quick hot take here, and I'm pretty sure you two will disagree with me. But one of my least favorite parts about this trilogy, it's Kylo Ren. I did not like him.
Wow.
I really didn't like this villain. I usually love the villains.
That was the wrong answer.
I don't have a single Kylo Ren figure. And I love villains. I just think he's so boring. Like he's nothing new, nothing interesting. They didn't do anything interesting with the character.
I think
like I don't know. Like the whole, you know, him and his dad thing, that was interesting. But besides that, it's things we've seen before.
I think that's Asset 9, Asset 10, Asset 11. I don't know. I mean, I like this guy a lot because Kylo Ren, as a bad guy, JSB, he does a lot of unique stuff. He's got a connection with the other side. He actually takes out his boss, which later we find out they walk that back as well. But they took out his boss. Remember that? Yeah. He's got an interesting new lightsaber. He's got this whole like taking down Jedi Order. There's a lot of interesting stuff in his background. But when you see the way that he actually operates, he looks like a conflicted, broken guy who is angry about his situation. And that comes out. They do a really good job of having that come out. I think he's one of the better developed characters, in my opinion, because I think that as a character, you can watch Kylo Ren's arc from the beginning. He's angry about where he's at, and he takes it out on his dad. Then he feels the remorse, gets more angry, takes it out on his boss. Now I'm in charge. Now I have to be the big guy. He's put in a position where he has to be really evil, and he walks that back and decides to, go back to where he's supposed to be. I think it's a really interesting arc, in my opinion. I think he's one of the more interesting characters.
And I think that this is I'm just going to jump in real quick. I'm going to say that I think out of everything for Star Wars, the first trilogy felt like it had structure. The prequels, even though they weren't the best, it felt like it had structure. This one doesn't feel like it was structured at all. Felt like they just were just rolling with the punches. Like Ben did say that like the first trilogy was just like movie by movie. They make the story as they go, but it felt like it had structure. Here, the only character that felt like it had structure was Kylo Ren. We want him to be a good guy, a bad guy, and turn him into a good guy. And that structure was evident in every single movie, I thought. And his relationship with Rey was the only other structured thing as well. At the beginning, straight up hated each other, couldn't stand each other. At the second, well, now they understand each other, and now they want to change each other. The last one, they realize what their purpose is, and now they have to face their fear. And I feel like that Kylo Ren as a character and his storyline wrapped up perfectly, but the movie wrapped up horribly.
See, I think I'm pretty sure, because everybody likes Kylo Ren, it seems. So I think it might be more of a personal thing with me. But one of the big things that I think of why I don't like him that much is I don't know what his motivation is. Why is he a bad guy? Why?
Sorry.
Oh, God.
Yeah. He's got me off topic here.
Yeah. No, but you don't know his motivation.
I don't know why he's a bad guy. I don't understand. They didn't explain good enough why he wants to be this new evil empire guy instead of just being a good guy like, his family. It didn't make any sense to me.
So the whole thing was like Snoke the Emperor was inside of his head telling him all these things about the dark side, and Luke was noticing it, and he became fearful, and so he tried to lash out. And then for me, it felt like Kylo was confused
and had no other choice.
No other choice. This person who's supposed to love him because this is his uncle. This is deeper than a master Padawan thing. This is his uncle, his family, his blood saying, "You scare me, I'm going to kill you." And he doesn't understand the voices inside of his head. He doesn't know it's pure evil. He is acting out of what he believes is right. And then he's going to get struck down by his uncle for doing what he thinks is right. And completely out of fear, he flees, because your uncle's Luke Skywalker. You're going to know he took down the Emperor.
Fear leads to anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. That was earlier in Star Wars. Did you guys know that? And that was his arc, in my opinion. And he was able to come out of that.
Yep.
I saw something really funny the other day. And it showed a scene from Return of the Jedi, how he wouldn't kill his father because he knew there was still good in him. And then Kylo Ren has one bad dream and he tries to kill him. It's such a weird progression for Luke.
It is a weird progression. Let me get into this, kind of switching topics a little bit. I think one of the things that the series did pretty well, and not pretty well, sorry, did the opposite of well, did pretty badly, was the handling of existing characters. So I think this is a significant obstacle that they would have had to deal with, that they did deal with, because we all have expectations. We know what the characters did. I think that they didn't do much with Luke's character. You guys alluded to it. I mean, it's not a great arc for him, in my opinion. And I think they wasted it at the end of that second one when he just died. I think Princess Leia might have been the most egregious thing in this entire series, because we all know that Carrie Fisher died, and that happened right before number 2 came out. So we were all expecting that to be an emotional scene. We were all kind of prepared for that. And they teased it with us. They teased it. They showed her out in space dying. We were like, all right, this is it. Sad music. And they teased us and kept bringing her back over and over again.
That was the cringiest thing I've ever seen.
But you look at it. God. If you look at it, I mean, with these existing characters, that's the thing they keep doing. They try and shock you. They're like, oh, they're dead. Oh, wait, some of them come back. Like Chewbacca in this last one, whenever the ship got destroyed, it's like, oh, he was on another ship that escaped. And then with Han, he actually does die at the end of that one. But, I mean, all of these characters that return, so I guess you're right. It could go either way. But
yeah, and then Han. Oh, wait, he did die.
He actually did die. Yeah, but with each one, I feel like they were going for the same kind of, these characters, you know them, you love them, they might die. Come to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them
or go ahead.
C-3PO losing his memory. Yeah.
No.
Well, what I got from it was, so it's like, let's have all these cool old characters that were super good heroes, but now they're all losers. Like Han is a deadbeat dad.
Yep.
Luke is some sort of nephew killer hermit.
Mm-hmm.
Leia, she doesn't do anything. She's kind of there. So it was like, let's bring back all these classic characters, but they all suck now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, because I definitely think, and it's the whole thing where like these movies are just a repeat of the original trilogy. Because what happens to Han Solo after what happened in the trilogy, he goes back to his ways after he has a son. After he has a son and Luke takes him, he goes back to being a loner with Chewbacca and doing some sketchy stuff. What does Leia go back to doing? Being a delegate for the rest of the world.
Standing around awkwardly.
Yeah, exactly. What does Luke go back and do? He isolates himself, and he's still fearful. And that was the whole point of the original thing, is he wasn't supposed to be fearful of himself. And then also he wasn't supposed to do things out of fear, out of anger. And now this new trilogy, this end of the saga, says, oh no, they went back to their old ways. And it's like,
there was
yeah, it's like, why would that happen? And they're just like, oh no, it just happens. Like, they spent their whole life trying to figure out what they were meant to do, and then they found it, were successful at it, and then they're like, oh wait, never mind, let's go back to our old self-destructive ways. And it's crazy.
You know what's funny? So they spent a lot of time tearing down our old beloved characters and building up these new characters they came up with. Now, I'm sure you guys don't know yet, but I am a huge into the action figure world. I'm all about collecting, and
no way.
I keep track of the values and which ones. And let me tell you, every time I go looking for Star Wars figures, the characters that are left on the shelves for months and months are Rey, Poe, Finn, Rose. Jesus Christ, I couldn't get Rose out of my sight for the whole 3 years, basically. But all these characters are left on the shelf. Nobody wants them. They go clearance. But do you think I could find one original trilogy character on the shelf? Heck no. So I think that's a sign of both what the adult collectors think, and even, I know not a lot of kids buy action figures anymore, but the ones that do, they don't want these new characters. They go for the original still. So take that info as you want, but I think it kind of shows to how these characters really aren't going to stand the test of time.
I definitely think you're right, JSB, because especially since I look at Finn, like Star Wars and Disney had a huge chance. And for our listeners out there, I am African American, but they had a huge chance to hit their African American demographic with this bigger than life character that had the possibility of being a Jedi. And people would have thought, hey, look, there's a cool new hip black Jedi other than Samuel L. Jackson. And I think a lot of people would have been up for that. But what do we get? We get this guy who just runs around, like doesn't really use a blaster, only uses a blaster a little bit in the first one, use a lightsaber a little bit in the first one, and then a little bit in the last one. But in the second one, all he does is run around, and we don't get to see him do anything really that cool. So it's like, why should we care about this character?
He saved the horses.
Like he's supposed to be like one of the three main characters of this story, and he doesn't do anything cool. I think Poe is the same way. Poe really doesn't do anything that cool. Rey is the only character that I think is pretty cool when it comes to what she does. But that also is because she's a Jedi. So if you're a Jedi, you're automatically cool. But Rey, a little less cool because, she was in the last of the saga.
So I think Rey is like a little bit bigger than most Jedi, which is another thing I want to complain about real quick. This has been a lot of complaining for me. I'm telling you guys, I thought that, like I said at the beginning, they were entertaining movies, and I'm a Star Wars fan. But I mean, the fact that they added in force healing is very interesting to me, especially this very end. If you can think through all of the big time deaths that could be avoided if they just knew how to force heal, I don't know. Pretty interesting.
Well, and then I think we definitely talked about this when we went to go see the movie together, as about how the Jedi in not the original trilogy, the prequels, they said they were losing connection with the Force. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why they didn't have the Force healing abilities and all that
Interesting.
stuff. Well, and that's just, but I think that's a stupid cop-out. The Jedi were really weak. That's why they didn't do that. And it's all like, well, shoot, they had it written down, didn't they? That, you can do this, but like nobody used it. And it's just crazy to me that that's their explanation. Well, what it feels like their explanation is the Jedi were weak back then. And I just don't buy it. I feel like they had this stuff written down. They were basically the governors or the paladins of the universe. And they lost touch with the Force, and then couldn't read a book to get back their powers. So it's just go for it.
Had to make Rey so powerful. Now, I like Rey as a character. She's probably my favorite part from this whole new trilogy. I really enjoyed her. I enjoyed Daisy Ridley, and I thought she did a pretty good performance with this character. I found her interesting. But, man, they just made her so strong, so powerful right away, and it didn't make any sense. I wouldn't say I'm on the whole she's a Mary Sue band camp that a lot of people are on, that she was way too powerful. She didn't face. I heard this really interesting thing where think back of all the main characters from the Star Wars movies. I don't know. I might have heard this from Ben, but Anakin, he got his hand cut off. Luke, he got his hand cut off and beat up. Rey, I'm pretty sure she didn't take 1 inch of damage the whole movie. The whole 3 movies. She didn't get cut. She didn't get punched. She didn't get anything. She didn't take any damage at all. So what are your thoughts on their handling of Rey's power? Do you think they overpowered her? What's your guys' take on that?
I definitely think they were setting it up. This is just my opinion. They were setting it up so that both Rey and Kylo were these 2 massively powerful Jedi or Sith that they were supposed to be the new start, and they were going to have powers better than Luke and the ones before them. And I only feel that way because just who they are. Like, we're talking about Ben Solo, the son of Leia and Han Solo. Like, amazing genes in this boy. And yes, he's going to be a badass, even to the point where Luke is scared of him, which Luke stared down the Emperor and said, F you, and looked at his father's face and said, F you too. Like, that's, but then he saw Ben Solo and he's like, oh no. And to me, it's like, it's crazy to me that that's the reason why, but I definitely felt like that was the setup, is Rey and Kylo are extremely powerful. And that's why I was excited, like when I saw the first movie, to see who Snoke was. Because if Snoke is controlling Kylo, then he must be crazy powerful. And I thought he was going to be the new evil, but then instead they're just like, no, he's a throwaway character.
Let's kill him and make him the old guy.
Like, they threw away characters like none other in this last saga.
Yeah, I think
Captain Phasma made me the most angry.
If we can go back to the point that you were making, though, earlier, Jacob, I mean, you were saying that it was the fans who ruined Star Wars and that their opinions of stuff mess it up. I mean, those are some bold choices number 2 made, where they killed off the main villain and all of a sudden it was going to be an interesting new arc. And I thought that it was going to be really interesting as well from that movie. I mean, like the whole point of Rey not having a lineage, and then all of a sudden they walked it back. And I think Palpatine was the plot point that fit both of them. I think that's why he was in the third one, if I'm being honest, to answer those questions. Like we mentioned, we're not going to get back in this discussion, but I think that that's the point that Palpatine comes back in. I think in this whole Star Wars universe, you see a bit of a limit on force powers over the years, or at least a lot of work to unlock new like force powers. But I feel like in these movies, it was a little bit too easy to get stuff done. And honestly, I enjoyed it as is, but and you see the Emperor in episode 3, if we go back all the way, whenever he's fighting against like Yoda in the Senate chamber, one of my favorite scenes, he's just jumping around and yelling at him. That's about all he's doing. And then we go into this one and he's literally shooting lightning out of his fingers and destroying every ship in the entire galaxy. I mean, it's a little bit interesting. A lot of these characters get ramped up to increase the stakes. And as a whole, I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing. I just think that whenever you do that, it kind of degrades the value of the Force.
And I also think that, I think this is one of the craziest things for me, is people complained about how them just get like making a Death Star but bigger and better. Like people kept on complaining about like come up with something original, but then they just proceed to just drill it into the ground that like, oh, we got planet destroyers. But like after you destroy, like
that's the thing. They made a jump to something that was different in episode 2 of the saga. Everyone hated it, and they jumped right back to what they knew.
Yeah, but to me, it's like I don't think in the second one they didn't do anything interesting. They just said we're gonna have this intergalactic spaceship chase with no action.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think number 2 has a lot of flaws, but
I think that's the problem. Is if they were like trying to go through nebulas and like, I've kind of warmed up to the like to our listeners, like my personal opinion at first about the in Solo, what was it, the Kessel Run?
Oh yeah, I love the Kessel Run.
That it was pretty lame because you didn't see what was going on. But after
you're wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong. You're right. I was wrong. After watching it a couple times, I'm like, okay, this is pretty dope. Like this guy is maneuvering through some crazy stuff, and he doesn't know where he's going, and that it makes it fun. And so the Kessel Run makes sense. It's cool. Navigating through all that stuff, it's cool. If they did that with that scene or something like that, with the scene in the second part of the last of the saga.
Yeah.
What episode 8 would it be? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 8, I think it would have been a lot more entertaining, but that's also like it's done and over with now.
Yeah.
Like no point of caring.
All right. So is that all of our comments on the new trilogy, guys? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good 50 minutes about him.
Yeah, we got into it. You guys
want to talk about what we want from the future?
Yeah.
What our kind of hopes and dreams are going to be?
I want 7,000 Mandalorian episodes. Make it happen, please.
Man, that shit's good.
That show is amazing.
It's good.
Oh man, if you love Star Wars and the Mandalorian's going on and you haven't seen it, you got to check it out because it is fantastic. It's grounded. You go through the Star Wars universe. You've got interesting characters, interesting plot. It's just fantastic. Really good dialogue. That's something that good Star Wars has. Good dialogue.
So I have not watched. I have not purchased Disney Plus to watch The Mandalorian yet. But tell me, is the plot darker or is it still that kind of lighthearted, kind of fun Star Wars vibe?
I think it toes the line. It goes between, and I like it.
Okay, and so this goes into my next point perfectly. Is one of the things they have in development. There's 2 things that I see right now they have in development. One is Kenobi. It's going to be a television series, and they also have an untitled Cassian Andor series. Do you guys know who Cassian Andor is?
Yeah, he's from the great Rogue One movie that I love.
Yeah, and I honestly will be down with that because it seems like it's going to be a dark story because he was essentially an assassin for the Republic, or not the Republic, or the Rebels.
Yeah, the Rebels, yeah. I'll be interested to see what that Cassian Andor series is like. If I'm going to be completely honest, the strength of that Rogue One movie, which if you had to ask me right now, which my favorite Disney Star Wars movie is, that's my favorite, was the crazy action and how it fit in late. The second, like probably the back 2/3 of that movie are just fantastic. But that beginning part with his character, I didn't think was that entertaining. I'll be interested to see what they do with him. I think he's a good actor. But as a whole, I mean, if it has that same dark feeling that, man, we can't do anything about this thing. We don't have a magic Jedi to come in and save us from this overwhelming power. I think that's an interesting tone for that movie, and that's why I liked it so much. So if they bring that into this Cassian Andor series, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
I want to see.
Go ahead. Oh, you first.
What I want to see more of in Star Wars now is I definitely want to see less Jedi. I want them to be more like of a rare oddity that we only see like barely once in a while. I want to see the more like what the Mandalorian is doing, how you see more of the, criminal underground or people who don't even know Jedi are a thing. I want it disconnected from everything we've seen. Just brand new characters and brand new places, and just kind of make the universe feel bigger. And I think they'll probably go that way just so they can sell more toys. So they don't have to resell the same ones over and over again. But that's the main thing I want to see. I really want to see a villain movie from Star Wars because that's one of Star Wars' main things is their villains. Everybody loves Vader. Everybody loves all the cool villains. I honestly want to see a Boba Fett movie. I know it's probably not going to happen, but I think that would be kind of cool. But I hope we get some more, bad guy stuff during the Empire time. There's a lot of stuff that's been unexplored, and after all this Force healing and Force teleportation stuff that we've been seeing, I think I can use a little break from the Force.
Have you guys played the new Star Wars game that's come out?
I have
Jedi game. I've played a little bit of it and I love it so far. And it's got a bit of the Force and the Jedi thing, but it's done with enough moderation and where you understand that it's rare, and even then there's still this desperate feeling to it. I think that the tone of that really works. So I think that's something, like you guys are saying, I think we all agree here. That's a tone that I think you got to work to keep going.
I will say this. I think all the Jedi games that Lucasfilms has worked on, talking about the new one and the Force Awakens, I think those are two excellent ways to go with the TV series. Is either make it about in the Clone Wars, or is it Rebels? I think it's Rebels, actually. In Rebels, the cartoon series, they talk about the Inquisitors.
Oh yeah.
And they hunt Jedi. They're designed like Darth Vader enlisted them to hunt Jedi. If we can get an Inquisitor series, I'd be very interested, because that means it's not going to be filled with like action packed. It's about these two individuals hunting down a Jedi, collecting information, more like a crime series, not like a mystery series about where did this Jedi go and where is he headed and all that good stuff. And why am I hunting down these Jedi? That kind of series would be interesting. And then also the Jedi on the Run series.
I think that'd be cool too.
I think those two things are places you could capitalize on, because you've already seen that there's a huge market. Because both of those video games, The Force Awakens and what's the new one called?
Oh man,
The Fallen Order.
Yeah, that's
Jedi
it.
Fallen Order.
Oh wait, and I mean The Force Unleashed. That's the name of the video games. The Force Unleashed and the Jedi Order.
Jedi Fallen Order. Yep.
Fallen Order. Those two games are very popular. People like the story in those games, and you can probably find a lot of success with doing a series like that.
So here's my crazy idea for what would be my dream show from this company. I think it would be a more lighthearted comedic show, but it would be a play on cops. But instead of cops, it's stormtroopers. And they just have to go around the galaxy, like taking care of stupid problems. I think it would be fun.
I think that'd be interesting. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think, and this is just my opinion, I'm not roasting you, because, to me, I feel like there's already content out there like that. And it's supposed to be a joke. And I think if Star Wars tried to do that, it seemed kind of disingenuous, because you're taking somebody else's idea and making it your own.
Okay.
Interesting.
I definitely seen a video where it's stormtroopers cops, and they're just doing silly, dumb things. And, I feel like, to me, Star Wars is more serious, and that's also because I'm pretty hardcore Star Wars fan. That I like a little bit of comedy, but not like a comedy series of Star Wars.
What if they made a crime drama show like Criminal Minds or CSI, but it was based in the Star Wars universe?
CSI,
that would be whack.
That would be a stretch, because it's like he what is it called? It's essentially just what Obi-Wan Kenobi did in the Clone Wars. Yeah, it's just like go to this big fat guy at a diner, and he was like, "Oh, Mandalorian,
Camino." Yeah,
that was a great character. My favorite Star Wars.
I want to see a spin-off movie about him.
Also, one of my favorite characters of all time. His name is Bib Fortuna. People know who that is. One of the best lines in cinema history. Awanawanga. Love that. That's what you titled it. I'm in. 3 hours, 4 hours. I don't care. I'll watch it.
No, I want to spin off of the two announcers for the Anakin Skywalker has pulled up.
10 out of 10.
Little Skywalker is stalled. Oh man, what a classic!
Man, Star Wars has always been a joke. Jesus Christ.
I love it. Yeah. So I think we all agree there's a lot of potential in Star Wars. So I think the big key for Star Wars to move forward will be to recapture that magic. I feel like people have kind of lost that magic when they watch Star Wars. That's going to be a key. And I think The Mandalorian did a really good job of bringing that back. Of you're in the Star Wars universe, it's different, and it's an experience. So I really appreciate what they've done there. I think that's the key for the future of Star Wars. That's all I'm going to say about it.
The key for the future is they need to stop worrying about making a good Star Wars movie and worry about making a good movie. That's what I have to say about it.
My whole thing about Star Wars, this is what I'm going to say about it, is they need structure. They need structure in every single plot they want to do and every single story they want to tell. They can't just go in willy-nilly and say, oh, whatever we make, the fans are going to love. False. We've seen that with the prequels, and we've seen it with the Last of the Saga. It's not going to happen. Just have some structure, tell a story, and we'll take it as is. Thank you.
Most importantly, keep Brie Larson away. Keep her away. Don't let her come close. She'll destroy you.
JSB's not a fan of Brie Larson. All right, guys, so let's move on to the second part of our show here, Rant of the Week. Every week we'll be ranting about something that we think is very important, and we're going to convince you it's important too. JSB, what is your Rant of the Week? Get to it.
Okay, so this is kind of it's related to the Star Wars thing, but not too serious. It's about fans, a certain type of fan that really, really gets on my nerves. It's the type of fan that they don't criticize anything from a certain franchise or a certain company. They just love it all, no matter how good it is. They're, I'm a fan of Marvel, so every Marvel movie is 10 out of 10. Or I'm a fan of Star Wars, so every Star Wars movie, I turn my brain off. If people do that, then what's the point of evolving a form of art like cinema? Like, there's no point if everybody's just going to go turn their mind off and enjoy these movies. I want these movies to improve, and the way they improve is by criticizing them, taking a hard look at them, and, judging them. I see so many people on these different Facebook groups I'm in and just different community places where they won't criticize something just because it's from a certain brand. And that's in video games. That's in so many different things. People won't take a critical look at things. And it drives me insane how gullible these people are. They think these companies care about them. They don't. They just care about their money. So don't act like you're offending the company in the movies they made. You don't need to protect them. They don't give a crap about you. I can't believe people are so hypnotized by these giant mega corporations and their crappy superhero movies, and they won't even criticize any of them when most of them are boring, regurgitated trash. Captain Marvel, disgrace to cinema.
There you go. Well, that was exactly what we were looking for. That was a rant.
Yes, it was. I like that. Yeah. All right. Jacob Sandoval, Rant of the Week, go.
Rant of the Week. Okay. Guys, my rant of the week is Twitter.
Oh, boy.
Twitter right now made me super frustrated. So you might have heard this little game called Smash Bros. Have you heard of it, Ben?
I've heard of it, I believe.
JSB, have you heard of it?
It's one of those little cult games.
Yeah, I actually I'm a Simon Belmont main.
Oh, dude, that's so cool. I've never played it before in my whole.
I'm a Kirby main.
Kirby.
I'm that
Kirby. that sounds like a Ben thing.
That's me.
Patriot fan and Kirby main. Twitter was blowing up because they were announcing the new characters that were gonna finish up the whole lineup for Smash Bros. And when they announced Fire Emblem characters, and Twitter was very upset because everybody was speculating about their favorite character going in and messing things up on Smash Bros. And then they didn't get it. I think this correlates perfectly to the Star Wars talks where fans set up these expectations, and when they're not fulfilled, they blame the people who made this thing that they loved. And then
they did make a shitty choice. Like, they wants another Fire Emblem character. That's so boring.
This is the thing. Who's their audience? Who's their demographic they're making those Fire Emblem characters for? It's not Americans, because Americans do not buy that game. There's a whole lot of people who play those Fire Emblem games, and you know how I know that is because those Fire Emblem games are still selling. Now, Americans and the American Twitter blew up with anger because of it. And I just say, it's your own dang fault. You set up these expectations that were in the air. That no one confirmed them. Nobody said, oh, you're going to get a Kingdom Hearts person in for Smash Bros. Oh, you're going to get... Who was the other big one they wanted? It was Sora and somebody else.
Dante, I think.
Dante from Devil May Cry. And they didn't happen. And I say, boo-hoo. Get over it. Those are your expectations. They didn't follow through. They chose another franchise. Get over it. It's not a big deal.
Okay. All right.
That's a fair rant. I'll take that.
That is a fair rant. All right, guys. So, I don't know if either of you have seen this cult classic, perhaps one of the greatest movies I've ever seen, Big Trouble in Little China. Is this familiar to you guys? Do you guys know what this is?
No, I haven't seen it.
It came to my ears this week that they are making a remake of Big Trouble in Little China, the famous movie with Jack Burton and Kurt Russell. One of my favorites. But can you guess who the main actor is? Who's been casted?
Brie Larson.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson was casted to star in Big Trouble in Little China 2.
What The Rock's cooking.
I'm very frustrated about this, and this is even going to be a remake of this movie. How do you remake Big Trouble in Little China? Watch the movie. It's out of this world whack. There's no way you're going to be able to do it without looking really disingenuous. It is a nuts movie with almost every bad guy dying at the end of that movie and all of the good guys being in all kinds of weird places. It's one of those movies that you watch and you're just have a really good time. It's a ride. You're through. It's like, wow, has it really been 2 hours? I've been watching this movie for 10 minutes, I feel like. But the thing about that movie is the plot isn't that great and it's just an adventure. And the big thing that really makes that movie great is Kurt Russell as the guy. So much charisma, like so much just being kind of the straight man in these crazy comedy situations. I have no idea why they would even consider remaking this movie, and I have no idea why Dwayne The Rock Johnson was the call. This was perhaps the worst casting, along with the worst idea to remake one of my favorites. And you better believe that I will probably go see it and probably not like it. That's my opinion.
These movie companies are so creatively dead, man. They have no interesting ideas. Let's do a quick exercise here, friends, and we're getting close to the end, so don't you worry, Ben. And Jacob.
That's good.
Listen here, all right. Let's think about the last couple years that Disney has made movies. Can you recall an original idea that wasn't a remake or a sequel
from Disney
that Disney made?
Yes. So no franchise movies, no, nothing like that. You can't. You got to think super far back. And I think the last one was like
Toy
The Good
Story.
Dinosaur or something.
Are we talking about sequels too? I'm thinking Wreck-It Ralph, my friend.
Wreck-It Ralph 2, you mean?
Right. Wait, what year? What's the Zootopia?
Zootopia. That's original. There you go.
Moana.
They're coming out with a new
Big Hero 6
thing. Oh man,
Big Hero 6 was a comic book.
Oh yeah, never mind. Finding Dory.
Zootopia.
Coco was a good one.
Came out in
the dinosaur one no one saw.
So when they do come out with a new one, it sucks.
Wait, what are you talking about? Coco was great.
Coco was great. That's my.
Coco was like 2014.
Are we sure?
Way.
Let me look it up real quick.
2017. Moana 2016.
It's been
3 years.
But that's a 2-year difference.
So
Zootopia was 2016.
I will pose this question to you then, and I think that this is people like you and I's fault that this happens. When's the last time you went and saw a movie that wasn't a big part of, one of these franchises? Because they're independent movies that come out. Knives Out, yeah, that's a good one.
We saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That was Tarantino.
But that's Tarantino. That's basically
it's a big time brand.
Yeah.
Well, no, because they're all original stories.
No, but it's by Tarantino.
No, I'm talking about
that doesn't matter.
When have you taken a risk and gone to the theater to watch a movie that might not be great because you don't know much about what's going to happen? This isn't just you. This isn't just you. And I think this is basically people in America, and I might even lump myself into this, don't like to take big risks when they go see movies. Like 1917 is out right now. Looks absolutely fantastic. I'm going to go see that one. And it's just one of those things where people want to complain so much about all these remakes and sequels and stuff like that. Go watch something different. I mean, they're there. If you look at the movie theater lineup right now, it's not all remakes and sequels.
Have you guys seen the movie Parasite?
I've not.
No, I haven't seen that one.
That's a Academy Award nominated film, and almost no American has seen it.
And they're crying, why isn't any of the Marvel movies nominated for Movie of the Year? You morons.
That's a different conversation. I think that when you talk about the Academy, they make some interesting choices. But right now, if I look at the movies that are in the theater, if you look at movies that aren't like remakes or sequels, you got 1917's out right now. You got to take a risk on that. Just Mercy just came out to go take a risk on that. You've got this underwater movie. You can go take a risk on that. The Grudge, take a risk on that. There's a lot of movies like that that are out that you could go take a risk on. But most people are going to go see Bad Boys, Doolittle. They're going to go see Jumanji. They're going to go see Star Wars. That's just the way that American consumers are, and it's just how it is. So it's a business, and I expect that to continue to happen until people change their ways.
See, I've been trying to be better at that. I will say, like 1 or 2 years ago, I was really bad with that. I wouldn't go see anything crazy. But now that I've been more critical about this, I've been trying to do it more often. Of course, I'm not as good as that as I want to be. Because, movies are expensive or not. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I'm definitely trying to be more open to new things. And I've stopped going to see things I don't want to support, if that makes sense. I didn't go see Aladdin. I didn't go see Lion King. Even if they're big movies that everyone's going to see, I'm not going to go see them. I'm not going to go give them my money. But I'm trying to speak more with my dollar. And I think if America starts doing that more, they're going to start getting better stuff. But it's impossible to make people do that.
Well, but this is the thing. I think when people go watch Aladdin, it's not us 20 to 30-year-olds going. It's the 30 to 40-year-olds going to go watch it with their kids. If it's them going to go see Dumbo, the new Dumbo, it's because they're going with their kids, and they'll get a sense of nostalgia when they watch it too.
Yeah,
I think it's the same way with all these remakes. Is they're trying to make movie going bearable for the adults, because if you go, some kids movies don't age well. And that's just a fact.
That is a fact.
And now I think we're getting more and more movies that age pretty well. I feel like the Toy Story movies, like all of them, age. I don't think they age. I think they're fantastic. Fun. I think they're good movies that you can watch time and time again. And as you get older, you're gonna get some jokes that they had in there for the adults. And if you're young, you're just going to enjoy it because it's moving pictures on the screen.
Well, fair enough. I thank you all for listening to our debut podcast. We had a lot of fun rambling on, and I hope you had fun listening. We're going to have so many amazing shows coming up. We're going to have movie talks. We're going to have sports talks. We're going to have horror stuff. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned to see what Off the Air Productions has coming out. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to blow your pants off. Isn't that right, friends?
Yep. Our next podcast is going to be about John Carter, the greatest movie of all time.
And I like to officially announce my retirement from Off the Air Productions.
Classic. No John Carter. We won't talk about it.
Well, thank you very much for listening. Make sure you check out all of our social medias. Do you guys want to plug those real quick, guys?
Yeah, you can check us out on Twitter. You can check us out on Instagram. You can check us out on Facebook. Additionally, you're probably listening to this on YouTube or on one of our podcast sites, so be sure to check that out.
Yep, so thank you very much for listening, and I hope you all have a fantastic night. This has been JSB, Ben, and Jacob, and you've been listening to Off the Air Productions.